At my Halloween party, my daughter-in-law called me a wrinkled old hag, and my husband laughed the loudest. But no one's laughing now. I'm Eleanor. I'm 65 years old. 7 months ago, something happened at my home in Scottsdale, Arizona that changed everything. I'd spent weeks planning a Halloween party, decorating, cooking, making sure every detail was perfect. I wanted my family to have a wonderful evening together. Instead, I got the worst night of my life. My daughter-in-law had too much to drink, said something cruel, something about my age, my appearance, called me names I won't repeat here. The room went quiet. Everyone waited to see what would happen. Then my husband laughed, loud, like it was the funniest thing he'd ever heard, and others joined in. I stood there, in my own home, at my own party, humiliated. Before I tell you how that moment happened, I need to know you're listening. Drop your city or country in the comments. Subscribe for real stories about real women navigating family and life. I spent decades trying to be a good mother, a good wife, supporting my family, doing everything right. But somehow, I still ended up as the punchline at my own party. At 65, I started wondering if maybe I was the problem. If I'd been too involved, to present too much, maybe they were right to laugh. That's what I thought that night. Standing in my living room, wearing a witch costume, being called a hag by my son's wife, while my husband of 37 years thought it was hilarious. But I was wrong, so very wrong. Stay with me, because what happened after that Halloween party changed everything, for all of us, and nobody saw it coming. I met Kenneth in the spring of 1985 in New York City. I was 25 years old, working as a junior analyst at Morgan Stanley. He was 28, working in corporate law at a mid-sized firm. We met at a networking event in Manhattan. He seemed confident, ambitious, impressed by my work in finance. "You're one of the few women in your department," he observed over drinks after the event. "One of 3 out of 40 analysts. That must be difficult." "It's challenging, but I'm good at what I do. The numbers don't care if you're a man or a woman." He liked that answer. Liked that I was driven, smart, making good money for a 25-year-old in 1985. What he didn't know then was that I came from money, old Connecticut money. My grandfather had built a textile empire. My father had invested wisely in real estate. I had a trust fund I'd never touched. Wanted to make it on my own first. We dated for 2 years. Kenneth worked long hours at his law firm. I worked longer at Morgan Stanley. We'd meet for late dinners in the financial district, weekend brunches in the village. Both of us building careers, both of us wanting success. My mother met Kenneth at Thanksgiving 1986. Afterward, she pulled me aside. "He seems nice, but Eleanor, I noticed something. When you talked about your promotion, he changed the subject. When you mentioned your bonus, he made a joke about you paying for dinner. Watch for that. Mom, he's just kidding around. He's proud of me. Maybe, or maybe he's uncomfortable with your success. Not all men can handle a woman who outearns them." I dismissed her concerns. Kenneth proposed in December 1987. We got married in June 1988 at my family's estate in Greenwich, Connecticut. Beautiful wedding, 200 guests, everything perfect. We moved into a condo in Manhattan, Upper East Side. I was making good money at Morgan Stanley. Kenneth was doing well at his firm. We were a young power couple, living the dream. Then, I got pregnant in 1989. Unexpected. We'd planned to wait a few more years, but Brandon was coming whether we were ready or not. "You'll take maternity leave?" Kenneth asked when I told him. "Of course. 3 months, and then back to Morgan Stanley." "Yes, why?" "Just asking. A lot of women quit after having babies. Can't handle both." "I can handle both." But handling both was harder than I'd expected. Brandon was born in March 1990. Beautiful, perfect, exhausting. I went back to work in June, found a nanny, tried to balance everything, failed more than I succeeded. Kenneth's mother Elizabeth visited from Ohio when Brandon was 6 months old. Traditional woman, hadn't worked since marrying Kenneth's father. She had opinions about my choices. "You're letting a stranger raise your baby while you work." "I raised 3 boys myself, wouldn't have dreamed of leaving them. It's different now. Women work. It's normal. Normal doesn't mean right. That baby needs his mother, not some nanny." Kenneth never defended me, just let his mother say whatever she wanted. Made me feel guilty for working, for wanting both career and family. By 1992, I was 32. Brandon was 2. I'd been promoted to senior analyst, making excellent money. More than Kenneth, though we never talked about that directly, but I could feel his discomfort. The way he'd downplay my promotions, make jokes about me being the breadwinner. My father died in 1993, left me everything. His real estate portfolio, his investments, his carefully built fortune, combined with my own earnings and my trust fund, I was suddenly very wealthy. More than Kenneth knew. More than I'd admitted. I didn't tell Kenneth the full extent. Told him about some inheritance. Enough to explain why we could afford a bigger place, but not everything. Some instinct told me to keep that information private. We bought a house in Westchester in 1994, 4 bedrooms, gorgeous property. Kenneth thought we were stretching financially. Didn't know I'd paid cash. Let him think we had a mortgage. My best friend Margaret got divorced that same year. After 20 years of marriage, her husband had been threatened by her success as a real estate agent, constantly undermined her. Finally left her for someone less ambitious. Don't let Kenneth make you small, Margaret told me over lunch in White Plains. I spent 20 years making myself less threatening, less successful, less everything, and he still left, because the problem wasn't me, it was him. His insecurity, his ego. Kenneth's not like that, isn't he? Eleanor, I've watched him, the way he talks about your work, the way he dismisses your success, the way he needs to be the important one in every conversation. He's just proud, wants people to know what he does. He's insecure, and insecure men are dangerous to successful women. Trust me, I know, but I didn't want to believe her. Didn't want to think my marriage was built on Kenneth's need to feel superior. So I ignored the signs, made myself smaller, stopped talking about my work, stopped mentioning promotions or bonuses. Let Kenneth be the successful one at dinner parties even though I made 3 times what he did. I left Morgan Stanley in 1995, started my own investment consulting firm. Small at first. Just me and an assistant, working from a home office in Westchester. But I was good. Very good. Built a client base. Made smart investments. Grew the firm. Kenneth seemed more comfortable with that. Me working from home, not in a big Manhattan firm, not competing in his world. He could tell people his wife had a little consulting business. Made it sound like a hobby. Not the rapidly growing firm that was making more money than his entire law practice. Brandon was 5 when I started the firm. In kindergarten. Smart, sweet, absolutely devoted to me. We'd spend mornings together before he went to school. Afternoons in my office while I worked. He'd color at the little desk I'd set up for him, ask me about numbers and investments. Even at 5, he understood I was building something important. Kenneth worked longer hours, came home late, played with Brandon for 15 minutes before bed, then complained he never saw his son. But he didn't change his schedule, didn't come home earlier, just complained that I wasn't managing everything better. Other wives handled this, he'd say. Susan's wife has 3 kids and a full-time job and she still has dinner ready when he gets home. Then maybe you should marry Susan's wife. Don't be like that. I'm just saying, you have help, a nanny, a housekeeper, but you still can't manage to have dinner ready. What exactly are you doing all day? Running a business? Making more money than you? Building an empire? But I didn't say that, just made dinner earlier the next day, made myself smaller. Again by 1998, my firm was thriving. I had 12 employees, offices in Manhattan, clients across the country. I was making serious money, investing smartly, building wealth. Kenneth couldn't fully comprehend because I never told him the real numbers. He thought we were comfortable, upper middle class, living well. He didn't know I had tens of millions, that the Westchester house was paid off, that I could retire tomorrow and we'd be set for life. I kept that information to myself. Some instinct, some protection, some knowledge that Kenneth's ego couldn't handle the truth, that our marriage only worked because he thought he was the successful one, the provider, the important one. Brandon was 8 in 1998. Still, my shadow. Still devoted. We'd have breakfast together every morning. He'd tell me about school, about friends, about everything. I was his whole world, and he was mine. Kenneth noticed, "You're too close with him. It's not healthy. He needs to be more independent. He's 8 years old, exactly 8 years old, and still attached to your hip. You need to let him grow up, be his own person." But Brandon didn't want to be independent. He wanted to be with me, and I wanted to be with him. We had a bond, special, close, the kind of mother-son relationship I cherished. What I didn't know then was that this closeness would become a weapon. That 30 years later, a woman would resent this bond so much she'd try to destroy it. And that Kenneth would help her. But in 1998, I didn't think about that, just focused on being a good mother, a good wife, a good business owner, balancing everything, making everyone happy, making myself smaller and smaller so everyone else could shine. By 2000, I was 40 years old. Brandon was 10, Kenneth was 43. We looked perfect from the outside. Beautiful house, successful careers, happy family, the American dream. But dreams aren't always what they seem, and perfection has a way of cracking when you look too closely. I just didn't know how badly everything would crack, or how long it would take before I finally stopped making myself small and started taking up the space I deserved. The early 2000s were good years. My firm was thriving. Brandon was growing into a wonderful young man. Kenneth and I had settled into a comfortable rhythm, or so I thought. My firm expanded significantly in 2002. I opened a second office in Boston, hired more analysts. My client base included Fortune 500 companies, high net worth individuals, institutional investors. I was managing hundreds of millions in assets, making investment decisions that affected thousands of people. Kenneth's law practice was doing fine. He made partner in 2003, good salary, respected position, but his earnings were a fraction of mine. And while he never said it directly, I could feel his resentment growing. Eleanor's little investment firm is doing well, he'd say at dinner parties, little, as if minimizing it made him feel better, as if my success was somehow diminishing his. Brandon was 12 in 2002, still close to me. We'd have breakfast together every morning before school. He'd tell me about his classes, his friends, his dreams, wanted to go into business like me, study finance, follow in my footsteps. Kenneth hated that. He should consider law or medicine, something more stable than investment consulting. My career has been very stable and very successful. You got lucky, had family money to fall back on. Brandon won't have that luxury. But Brandon would have that luxury. I was building an empire specifically so my son would never struggle, would never worry about money, would have every opportunity I'd had and more. Margaret and I had lunch monthly at a cafe in Westchester. She'd rebuilt her life after divorce, thriving in real estate, dating, happy, free. How's Kenneth handling your success? She asked one afternoon in 2005. He's fine. Why, Eleanor? I've known you 20 years. You're not fine. You're different, quieter, like you're constantly apologizing for taking up space. That's not true. It is true. Last week at my open house, you introduced yourself as Kenneth's wife, not as the woman who runs a multi-million-dollar investment firm. You've made yourself invisible. She was right. I'd spent 15 years making myself smaller, introducing myself by my relationship to Kenneth rather than my own accomplishments, downplaying my work, my success, my worth. Brandon graduated high school in 2008, valedictorian full scholarship to Yale. I was so proud I could burst. Kenneth was proud too, but also competitive. Must be nice to have a scholarship. I had to work my way through college, build character. Brandon worked hard for that scholarship. Let him enjoy it. I'm just saying. Kids today have it easy. Brandon chose Yale specifically because of their business school. Wanted to study finance, economics, follow my path. We'd visit him in New Haven. He'd show me his classes, introduce me to professors, talk about investment strategies. He was my son in every way. Smart, ambitious, kind. Kenneth felt left out of those conversations, would change the subject, talk about his cases, make sure he was the center of attention. In 2010, Kenneth's mother Elizabeth got sick, cancer. She moved in with us in Westchester for 6 months during treatment. Those were difficult months. She'd never really approved of me, never liked that I worked, never understood why Kenneth let me have a career. If Kenneth had married someone more traditional, someone who focused on family, he'd be happier. She told me one afternoon. I was making her lunch. She was recovering from chemo. Kenneth is happy. Elizabeth, is he? He works long hours, comes home to a wife who's always busy with her business. That's not a real marriage. That's two people living separate lives. She died in November 2010. Kenneth grieved hard, and somehow, his grief became my fault. I hadn't been supportive enough, hadn't put his needs first, had been too focused on my business during his mother's illness. I tried harder after that, worked from home more, traveled less, put my firm on semi-autopilot while I focused on Kenneth, made myself smaller. Again. Brandon graduated Yale in 2012, 22 years old. Brilliant, beautiful, everything I'd hoped he'd become. He got job offers from Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, Morgan Stanley, top firms competing for him. But he chose to work with me, wanted to join my firm, learned from me, eventually take over someday. I was thrilled. Kenneth was less so. He needs to make it on his own, not rely on mommy to give him a job. I'm not giving him a job. He earned it, and every other firm wanted him. He chose us. Because it's easy, because you'll go easy on him. It's nepotism. But it wasn't nepotism. Brandon was talented, hardworking. Within 2 years, he was managing major accounts, making smart investment decisions, proving himself, not because he was my son, because he was excellent at what he did. Margaret retired from real estate in 2015, 65 years old. Decided she'd worked enough, wanted to travel, enjoy life. She'd built a successful career, saved wisely, had no regrets. You should think about slowing down too, she said over lunch. You've built an empire. You're 60. Let Brandon take over more. Enjoy your life. I enjoy my work. Or are you afraid to stop because then Kenneth will expect you to focus entirely on him, to finally be the traditional wife his mother always wanted you to be? She'd hit too close to the truth. I was afraid to stop, afraid of what retirement would mean, who I'd be without my firm, without my work, without the thing that made me feel valuable. Kenneth started talking about retirement in 2016. He was 60, ready to slow down, wanted me to retire too, sell my firm, move somewhere warm, enjoy our golden years. Where would we move? I asked. Arizona maybe. Scottsdale, beautiful, warm, golf, everything we'd want. I wasn't ready to retire. 56 years old, still energized by my work, still had goals, still building. But Kenneth was insistent, made it clear this was what he wanted, expected. You've worked enough, Eleanor. You've proved yourself. Now it's time to focus on us, on our marriage, on actually being present. The implication was clear. I'd failed at being present, failed at being a good wife, because I'd spent 30 years building a business, creating wealth, succeeding. We moved to Scottsdale in 2017, bought a beautiful home in DC Ranch, gated community, 4 bedrooms, pool, mountain views. Kenneth retired from his law practice. I sold 70% of my firm to my partner, kept 30%, still involved but less hands-on. Brandon stayed in New York, running the New York office, 27 years old, brilliant, successful. I was so proud. We talked every day, video calls, texts, email, staying connected despite the distance. Kenneth complained about that too. You're still too involved with Brandon. He's a grown man. Let him live his own life. I'm his mother. We're close. That's normal. It's not normal. It's codependent. You need to let go. But I didn't want to let go. Brandon was my son, my pride, my joy, the one relationship in my life that felt pure, unconditional, based on genuine love rather than ego or insecurity. Life in Scottsdale was slower. Kenneth played golf daily. I joined clubs, made friends, tried to fill my days with activities that felt meaningful. But I missed my work, missed the challenge, missed feeling like I mattered beyond being Kenneth's wife. Margaret moved to Scottsdale in 2019. She'd always wanted to live in Arizona. We were neighbors again, back to monthly lunches. Except now at Kierland Commons instead of Westchester cafes. How's retirement treating you? She asked one afternoon. It's fine. Eleanor, you've been saying fine for 35 years. How are you really? Lost. I don't know who I am without my work. Kenneth's happy. Playing golf, living the dream, but I feel invisible, like I disappeared the moment I stopped working. Then go back. You still own 30% of the firm. Get more involved. Do consulting. Something. Kenneth wants me home. Available. Present. Says I owe him that after years of focusing on work. You don't owe him anything. You've spent decades making yourself small for him. When is it your turn? That was the question I couldn't answer. When was it my turn? When did I get to matter? To take up space? To be seen? Then Brandon called in early 2021. He was 31. Had news. His girlfriend was pregnant. They'd only been dating 6 months. But she was pregnant. They were getting married. Mom, I need to tell you something. Heather's pregnant. We're having a baby. And we're going to get married soon. Brandon, are you sure? 6 months is fast. Pregnancy's a reason to not necessarily to marry. I love her, Mom, and I want to do the right thing. Marry her before the baby comes. I met Heather at their wedding in June 2021. Small ceremony. City Hall in New York. She was 7 months pregnant, beautiful, confident, and already, I could see it, the way she looked at me, assessed me, judged me. So, you're the famous Eleanor, she said when Brandon introduced us. Brandon talks about you constantly, his perfect mother who can do no wrong. She said it like a joke, but I heard the edge, the resentment, the competition. I'm just his mother, nothing special. Oh, I don't know about that. He makes you sound pretty special, pretty important, pretty impossible to live up to. Kenneth liked her immediately. She's refreshing, young, fun, not caught up in business and money, just wants to be a good wife and mother. Unlike me, that was the implication. Heather was everything I wasn't. Traditional, focused on family, not ambitious, not threatening. Their son Tyler was born in November 2021. Beautiful, perfect, my first grandchild. I flew to New York to meet him, held him, fell completely in love. This tiny person who carried my son's DNA, my blood, my family. We're thinking about moving to Arizona. Brandon mentioned during that visit, being closer to you and Kenneth, raising Tyler near family. That would be wonderful. But I didn't know then what that would mean, how close would become too close, how love would become control, how being a good grandmother would make me the villain. I didn't know that in 4 years, Heather would hate me so much, she'd call me a wrinkled old hag at my own party, and that Kenneth would laugh, that everything I'd built, my relationship with my son, my marriage, my sense of self would crumble in one evening. But in November 2021, holding my grandson, I thought everything was beginning, a new chapter, a happy one. I had no idea it was actually the beginning of the end. * Brandon, Heather, and baby Tyler moved to Scottsdale in January 2022. I was thrilled. My son, my grandson, close by, a chance to be involved, to help, to be the grandmother I'd always wanted to be. They stayed with us temporarily while house hunting. Heather made it clear she wasn't happy about it. It's just until we find something, Brandon assured me. A few weeks, maybe a month. Those weeks were tense. Heather barely spoke to me, would take Tyler to their room rather than let me hold him, made comments about my house, my decorating, my cooking. This is very formal, she said one evening at dinner. Not really kid-friendly. We'll need something more relaxed, more normal. Normal, as if my home wasn't normal, as if 65 years of building a life made me abnormal. Kenneth noticed nothing, thought Heather was delightful. She's just young, adjusting to motherhood. Give her time. Margaret came over one afternoon while Heather was out with Tyler, sat in my kitchen, looked around. How's it going with them here? It's fine, Eleanor. It's tense. Heather doesn't like me. I can feel it. She barely lets me near Tyler. Acts like I'm intruding in my own home. Have you talked to Brandon? What would I say? Your wife doesn't like me. That'll just cause problems between them. I'll wait it out. Once they have their own place, it'll be better. But I wanted to help make it better, faster. Wanted them settled, happy, close but not too close. That's when I had the idea. There was a house for sale in DC Ranch, same gated community, beautiful 4-bedroom home, 3 streets over from mine. Perfect for a young family. I bought it, cash. $2 million, furnished it, made it move-in ready. A gift for Brandon and Heather, for Tyler, for my family. I told Brandon first, took him to see it one morning while Heather was napping with Tyler. Mom, this is incredible, but we can't afford this. You don't need to afford it. It's a gift. From me. For you and Heather and Tyler, a $2 million gift. Mom, that's too much. Brandon, I have the money. I want you close. I want Tyler to grow up near his grandmother. Let me do this, please. He agreed, thrilled, grateful. We told Heather that evening. Her reaction wasn't what I expected. You bought us a house, without asking me, without letting us pick it out. I thought you'd be happy. It's beautiful. Perfect for you. It's 3 streets away from you. That's not perfect. That's suffocating. You're buying control, making sure we can't escape. That's not true. I'm just trying to help. By putting us in your debt, by making sure we owe you forever, by keeping Brandon tied to his mummy. Brandon intervened. Heather, that's enough. Mom's being generous. We should be grateful. Grateful. Brandon, don't you see what she's doing? She's buying you, keeping you close, making sure I can never have you to myself. That's when I understood. This wasn't about the house. This was about me, about my relationship with Brandon. Heather saw me as competition, as the other woman, the one she had to defeat to fully have her husband. Kenneth thought I should apologize. You overstepped, Eleanor. Should have asked them first. Let them choose their own house. I was trying to help. You were trying to control. Heather's right. You're too involved. You need to step back. Let them build their own life. They moved into the house in March 2022. Heather barely thanked me. Just moved in, started decorating, making it hers, erasing any trace of my involvement. I gave them space those first few weeks. Didn't visit, didn't call too much. Let them settle. But I missed Tyler. Missed my son. Felt the distance like a physical ache. Brandon called one evening. Mom, Heather and I talk. We want to start a tradition. Sunday dinners at your house. Every week. Family time. You, Kenneth, us, Tyler. What do you think? I think that sounds wonderful. I was thrilled. A weekly tradition. Guaranteed time with my grandson, with my son, a chance to build a relationship with Heather, make this work. That first Sunday in April was lovely. I cooked Brandon's favorite meal, pot roast, mashed potatoes, apple pie, set the table beautifully, made everything perfect. Tyler sat in a high chair, 6 months old, smiling, laughing, perfect. I held him while Heather ate, fed him, played with him, fell more in love with my grandson. Heather watched me with Tyler, her expression tight, uncomfortable. When I tried to hand him back, she took him quickly, held him close, as if I might steal him. Kenneth and Brandon talked business, golf, sports, male bonding. Heather and I made awkward small talk about the house, the weather, Tyler's sleep schedule. After they left, Kenneth said, "That went well. See, she's warming up to you." But she wasn't warming up. She was enduring, counting down until she could leave, resenting every moment. The Sunday dinners continued. Week after week, I'd cook elaborate meals, set beautiful tables, try so hard to make Heather comfortable, happy, to show her I wasn't a threat. But everything I did seemed to make it worse. When I held Tyler, she'd watch the clock. When Brandon and I talked about work, she'd change the subject. When I offered advice about anything, recipes, baby tips, local recommendations, she'd smile tightly and ignore it. Margaret came to Sunday dinner once in May. Heather was polite but cold. After they left, Margaret pulled me aside. "That girl hates you." "She doesn't hate me. She's just adjusting. Eleanor, she hates you. The way she looks at you when you interact with Tyler, the way she tenses up when Brandon talks to you. She sees you as competition, as someone trying to steal her husband and her baby. That's ridiculous. Brandon is my son. Tyler is my grandson. I'm not stealing anyone. You know that, I know that, but Heather is 24 years old with a baby and a husband who adores his mother. She's threatened, and threatened people do dangerous things." During the week, Brandon would stop by, morning coffee, after-work drinks, help fix things around my house, just like he'd always done, just like we'd always been, close, connected, mother and son. Kenneth thought it was too much. He has a wife now, a child. He shouldn't be here every other day. He's my son. I'm his mother. This is normal. It's not normal. It's excessive. And Heather must hate it. No wonder she's cold to you. You're monopolizing her husband. But I wasn't monopolizing anyone. Brandon was an adult, making his own choices. If he wanted to visit his mother, that was his decision. Heather didn't own him, didn't get to dictate his relationships. Or so I thought. By summer 2022, things were deteriorating. Heather started making excuses to skip Sunday dinners. Headaches. Tyler's fussy. She's tired. Brandon would come alone sometimes, which made everything worse, made Heather angrier. "She thinks you're trying to separate us," Brandon told me one afternoon. We were sitting by my pool. Tyler was napping inside with Kenneth. "That's not true. I know, but that's how she sees it. She feels like you're always between us, always there, always involved." Should I stop? Stop the Sunday dinners? Stop seeing you during the week? No, she needs to adjust. This is my family. You're my mother. She has to accept that. But acceptance wasn't coming. It was getting worse. Heather's resentment growing with every Sunday dinner, every weekday visit, every moment I spent with my son or grandson. My friend Susan from the neighborhood noticed, "Eleanor, I don't want to overstep, but I've seen you with your daughter. And honey, that girl is seething. The way she looks at you. Like you're her enemy." Have you noticed? I'd noticed. How could I not? But I didn't know what to do about it. Didn't know how to fix it. Didn't know how to make a 24-year-old woman understand that loving my son didn't mean threatening her marriage. Kenneth's solution was simple. Back off. Stop being so available. Stop having Brandon over all the time. Give him space. I gave them a house. I give them money. I babysit Tyler. I cook Sunday dinners. I'm trying to help, to be supportive. You're trying to control, to keep Brandon tied to you, and Heather sees right through it. I'm not trying to control anyone, aren't you? Eleanor, be honest. You bought them a house 3 streets away. You expect them every Sunday. You want Brandon to visit multiple times a week. That's not giving them space. That's keeping them on a leash. His words stung because maybe they were partially true. Maybe I did want my son close. Maybe I was holding on too tight. But wasn't that normal? Wasn't that what mothers did? Love their children, want them near. By the end of 2022, I was walking on eggshells, trying to read Heather's moods, trying to know when to engage and when to disappear, trying to be the perfect grandmother without being too involved, the supportive mother-in-law without being intrusive. But I couldn't win. Everything I did was wrong. Too much or too little. Too involved or too distant. I was 62 years old and feeling like a failure at the one relationship that should have been natural, easy, simple. Being a grandmother, being a mother, being part of my son's life. Instead, I felt like an intruder, an unwanted presence, someone who needed to earn her place in her own family. And Kenneth wasn't helping. He'd sided with Heather, thought I was the problem, the controlling mother who couldn't let go. Never mind that I'd spent 40 years building wealth specifically so my family would be secure. Never mind that everything I did came from love. To Kenneth and Heather, love looked like control. Generosity looked like manipulation. Closeness looked like suffocation. And I didn't know how to change their minds. Didn't know how to prove I wasn't the villain they'd decided I was. I just kept trying, kept showing up, kept being present. Kept hoping that eventually Heather would see, would understand, would accept me. I had no idea that instead of acceptance, I'd get humiliation. Instead of understanding, I'd get cruelty. Instead of a family, I'd get a Halloween party that would destroy everything. But that was still a year away. And I was still hopeful, still trying, still believing that love would win. I was wrong. The year 2023 started with hope. Tyler was turning 1 in November. Maybe once he was older, things would improve. Maybe Heather would relax. Maybe we'd find our rhythm as a family. But things got worse instead of better. The Sunday dinners continued, but they were increasingly strained. Heather would arrive late, sit on her phone during dinner, make passive-aggressive comments about my cooking. This is very rich. Tyler can't eat this. Too much salt. Too much butter. We're trying to raise him healthy. I can make something different for him. What would you prefer? We brought his food. We'll feed him ourselves. Kenneth would smooth things over. Heather's just being a good mother, looking out for Tyler's health. You understand, Eleanor. I understood. I understood I was being excluded, told my cooking wasn't good enough, told I didn't know how to feed my own grandson, told to step back. Again. Brandon's weekday visits became a war zone. Heather started tracking them, questioning him. You were at your mother's for 2 hours. What were you doing? Just talking, having coffee. She's my mom, Heather. I'm your wife. Tyler's your son. We should be your priority, not coffee with mummy. Brandon told me about these conversations. Prostrate, torn. I don't know what to do, Mom. She's always angry when I visit you, but you're my mother. I'm not going to stop seeing you. Maybe you should come less often. If it's causing problems. Why should I? I'm a grown man. I can see my mother if I want to. But the visits did decrease, from 3 times a week to once, from hour-long coffees to quick 20-minute stops. Brandon looked guilty every time, like he was betraying someone no matter what he chose. Margaret and I had lunch at True Food Kitchen in March 2023. She'd been watching everything unfold, knew how much I was struggling. You're losing yourself in this, Eleanor, trying to please everyone, be everything to everyone, and still failing. I don't know what else to do. I step back. She says I'm distant. I'm involved. She says I'm controlling. There's no winning. Because she doesn't want you to win. She wants you gone, out of Brandon's life. And Kenneth's helping her make that happen. Kenneth's not helping her. He just wants peace. Eleanor, Kenneth has taken Heather's side in every single conflict, every disagreement, every tension. He's made you the villain and her the victim. That's not wanting peace. That's choosing sides. She was right. Kenneth had chosen Heather, saw her as the wronged young wife, saw me as the overbearing mother who couldn't let go. No matter what I did, how I tried, Kenneth had already decided I was the problem. Tyler's first birthday in November 2023 was difficult. Heather planned an elaborate party at their house, invited her friends, her family, lots of people I didn't know. I felt like a guest at my own grandson's birthday. I'd bought Tyler an expensive gift, a beautiful wooden play set for their backyard, custom-made, safe, educational, perfect for a 1-year-old. Heather barely thanked me. "Oh, thanks, we'll see if we have room for it." Kenneth pulled me aside. "Did you ask them before buying something that large? For their house. It's a gift for Tyler." I didn't think I needed permission. You do need permission. It's their house, their yard, their child. You can't just make decisions without consulting them. I'm his grandmother. I'm allowed to buy my grandson gifts. You're allowed to buy appropriate gifts, not things that take over their space and require them to accommodate your choices. Even gift giving was wrong. Even trying to be generous was controlling. I couldn't do anything right. By early 2024, I was seeing Tyler less. The Sunday dinners had become monthly instead of weekly. Brandon's visits had almost stopped completely. Heather had won. She'd successfully created distance between me and my son, me and my grandson. I felt like I was disappearing. Like I'd become invisible in my own family. The matriarch nobody wanted, the grandmother who was tolerated but not welcomed. Kenneth noticed my sadness, but blamed me for it. "You brought this on yourself. If you'd given them space from the beginning, this wouldn't have happened. I gave them a house. How much more space could I give? Emotional space, freedom, the ability to build their own family without you hovering. That's what my love looked like to him. Hovering, intrusion, control." That my sister Diane visited from California in April 2024, 60 years old, successful artist, never married, never had children. She'd built a life entirely on her own terms. "You look tired, Ellie." "I am tired. Tired of trying to be good enough for people who've decided I'm not." "Then stop trying, stop performing, stop making yourself small for people who will never appreciate it. They're my family, are they? Because family doesn't make you feel like you're constantly failing. Family doesn't require you to earn your place. Family accepts you, values you, wants you around. Brandon values me. He's just caught in the middle." Brandon is 34 years old. If he's caught in the middle, that's his choice. He's choosing to stay there instead of standing up to his wife, instead of defending you. Her words hurt because they were true. Brandon loved me. I knew he did, but he wasn't defending me, wasn't standing up to Heather's treatment of me, wasn't telling Kenneth to back off. He was just caught, passive, letting everyone else dictate the terms of our relationship. Summer 2024 was lonely. Kenneth played golf constantly. Brandon rarely visited. Tyler was growing up without really knowing me. I'd see posts on social media, Heather's family visiting, her friends with Tyler, her mother babysitting, everyone else getting access. I was denied. I volunteered at a local women's shelter, joined a book club, tried to fill my days with purpose, but the ache remained. The feeling of being shut out of my own family, of watching from the outside while everyone else belonged. Margaret suggested I talk to a therapist. "You're depressed, Eleanor. This situation is making you ill. You need help processing it." "I'm fine." "You're not fine. You're 64 years old and you're disappearing, making yourself smaller and smaller. Soon there'll be nothing left." She was right. I could feel it. The way I second-guessed everything I said. The way I apologized for existing. The way I waited for permission to be a grandmother, to be a mother, to be myself. In September 2024, I decided to throw a Halloween party. October was approaching. I loved Halloween, always had, and I wanted to bring the family together, create a happy memory, show Heather I could be fun, relaxed, not the controlling mother-in-law she'd decided I was. I spent weeks planning, elaborate decorations, hiring caterers, creating a beautiful, festive atmosphere. I invited Heather's parents, her friends, my friends, Kenneth's golf buddies, Brandon's colleagues, made it a real party, a celebration. I found the perfect costume, an elegant witch, long black velvet dress, beautiful hat, sophisticated makeup, not scary, classy, powerful. I felt good in it. Felt like maybe I was reclaiming something, some part of myself I'd lost. Heather seemed excited about the party, actually engaged in planning, suggested ideas, offered to help. I was thrilled. Maybe this would be the turning point, the moment we finally connected. Kenneth was proud of me. This is good, Eleanor. Fun. Exactly what we need. Just be yourself. Be relaxed. Don't try too hard. Don't try too hard. As if trying was my problem, as if caring was my flaw. The night of the party arrived, October 26, 2024. My house looked amazing, decorated beautifully, food was perfect, guests arriving, everyone in costumes, laughing, enjoying themselves. Brandon, Heather, and Tyler arrived around 7. Tyler was dressed as a little dinosaur, adorable, 3 years old now, running around, playing so big, so grown up. I'd missed so much of it. Heather's costume was a sexy cut short, tight, lots of attention from the male guests. She was drinking wine, lots of wine, getting louder, more animated, more relaxed than I'd ever seen her. I was happy. The party was working. People were mixing, having fun. Heather was laughing. Kenneth was in his element. Brandon seemed relaxed. Maybe everything would be okay after all. Maybe this party would fix things, bring us together, start healing the wounds. I had no idea that in 3 hours, everything would shatter. That Heather's wine would turn into ammunition, that my witch costume would become a punchline, that Kenneth's laughter would break my heart. I had no idea that October 26, 2024, would be the night that changed everything. The night I stopped trying to be good enough. The night I finally saw everyone clearly. But at 8 p.m., I was still hopeful, still smiling, still believing love could win. I was about to learn how wrong I was. The party was in full swing by 8. My house was filled with people, laughter, music, the perfect Halloween atmosphere. I'd spent weeks creating orange and purple lights cast a warm glow throughout, elegant spider webs draped from the ceiling, real pumpkins carved with intricate designs lined the walkways. A professional bartender served signature cocktails. The catering was impeccable. Everything I'd planned was working. Margaret arrived around 8. She was dressed as Cleopatra. Stunning. She found me in the kitchen, checking on the appetizers. Eleanor, this is incredible. You've outdone yourself. I wanted it to be perfect. It is perfect. How is Heather? Good, actually. She's drinking, laughing, seems to be having fun. Maybe this will help. Maybe this is what we needed. Margaret looked skeptical but didn't say anything. Just hugged me. I hope so. You deserve a good night. Kenneth was holding court in the living room, dressed as a cowboy, telling stories to his golf buddies, laughing loud, in his element. He loved entertaining, loved being the center of attention. Brendan was following Tyler around, making sure he didn't get into trouble. 3-year-olds at parties were exhausting. Tyler was adorable in his little dinosaur costume, green scales, a tail that dragged behind him. He kept roaring at people, making everyone laugh. I bent down to his level. Tyler, you're the scariest dinosaur I've ever seen. Look, roar. Oh my, so scary. I picked him up, spun him around, heard his giggles, felt my heart fill. These moments, these precious moments with my grandson, this is what I'd been missing, what I'd been fighting for. Heather appeared, grabbed Tyler from my arms, not gently, possessively. He needs to eat. Come on, Tyler. And just like that, he was gone. The moment ended. Heather disappeared into the crowd with my grandson, avoiding me, even at my own party. Susan, my neighbor, touched my arm. That was rude. You okay? I'm fine. She's just being protective. That wasn't protective. That was territorial. There's a difference. But I pushed the feeling down, focused on being a good hostess, circulating, talking to guests, making sure everyone had drinks, food, was enjoying themselves. Heather's parents, Jim and Carol, arrived around 9. They were friendly, polite, dressed as a doctor and nurse. They'd always been kind to me, more accepting than Heather herself. Eleanor, this party is wonderful, Carol said. You've really gone all out. Thank you. I'm so glad you could make it. We wouldn't miss it. And look at Tyler. He's having the best time. Tyler was indeed having fun, running between adults, collecting candy from the bowls I'd placed around, playing with other kids who were there, being 3, being happy. Heather was on her 3rd glass of wine, maybe 4th. I'd lost count. She was loud now, laughing at everything, hanging on Brandon's arm, flirting with Kenneth's golf buddies, her inhibitions lowering with each drink. Brandon looked concerned. Maybe you should slow down, babe. We still need to drive home. We live 3 minutes away. We can walk if we need to. Relax, Brandon. Have fun for once. By 9:30, the party was at its peak. Probably 60 people in my house, music playing, conversations flowing. The energy was good, happy, festive. I was standing near the fireplace talking to Margaret and Susan when I heard Heather's voice rise above the music. "Oh my God, Eleanor, I love your costume." She was approaching, unsteady on her feet, wine glass in hand, eyes glossy. She stopped in front of me, too close, invading my space. "You look so perfect, like you were born to be a witch." Something in her tone made me uneasy. It wasn't a compliment. It was something else. Something mean, hiding behind false enthusiasm. "Thank you. You look beautiful too. Your costume is lovely. Mine's just a cat. Basic. But yours is authentic. You really committed to it." People nearby were starting to notice, starting to tune in to our conversation. I could feel eyes turning toward us. "Heather, maybe we should get you some water." "I don't need water. I need to tell you how amazing you look, how perfectly you embody this character, the witch, the powerful woman who controls everything." Brandon appeared. "Heather, come on, let's go outside, get some air." "No, I want to talk to your mother. Want to tell her how great she is, how she's always there, always present, always hovering, like a good witch. Right, Eleanor?" The room was getting quieter, more people listening, watching, sensing something was happening, something uncomfortable. "Heather, you've had a lot to drink. Why don't we?" "I haven't had that much. I'm fine. I'm just saying what everyone's thinking, that you look perfect as a witch. You don't even need the costume, really." My stomach dropped. I knew what was coming. Could feel it building. Margaret stepped closer to me. Susan did too, flanking me, supporting me, but I couldn't move, couldn't speak, just stood there waiting for the blow I knew was coming. "What I mean is," Heather continued, louder now, making sure everyone could hear, "you already look like a wrinkled old hag, so the costume is just redundant." Silence, complete silence. The music seemed to fade. Conversation stopped. Everyone staring. "Wrinkled old hag." She'd said it, out loud, in front of everyone. At my party, in my home. I felt my face burn, felt tears threatening, felt 64 years of insecurity and self-doubt crash over me. Every fear I'd ever had about aging, about being irrelevant, about being too much and not enough, all of it confirmed in 4 words. "Wrinkled old hag." Brandon moved toward Heather. "That's enough." That was completely inappropriate. But before he could reach her, before anyone could react, I heard it. Laughter, loud, genuine, from across the room. Kenneth, my husband of 37 years, laughing, not uncomfortably, not trying to smooth things over, actually laughing, like it was funny, like humiliating me was entertainment. And then others joined in. Not everyone, but enough. Kenneth's golf buddies, a few people who'd had too much to drink, nervous laughter, uncomfortable laughter, but laughter. At me, at my appearance, at my age, at my existence. I stood there in my witch costume, the one I'd felt powerful in, the one I'd thought made me look elegant, and I felt small, smaller than I'd ever felt in my entire life. Margaret grabbed my hand. "Eleanor, she's drunk. She doesn't mean it." But she did mean it. And even if she didn't, Kenneth's laughter meant something. It meant he agreed. It meant he saw me the same way. It meant 37 years of marriage hadn't earned me basic respect, basic defense, basic loyalty. Susan was furious. "Kenneth, that's your wife. How can you laugh?" Kenneth's laughter died down. He looked around, realized people were staring at him, judging him. It was just a joke. "Heather's drunk. Eleanor knows. She didn't mean anything by it. She called me a hag." My voice came out quiet, shaky. "At my own party, and you laughed." "Oh, come on, don't be so sensitive. It was just the wine talking. Everyone knows that." Baffa, everyone didn't know that. Everyone was looking at me with pity, with embarrassment. For me, at me, I couldn't tell which was worse. Heather swayed slightly. "I didn't mean, I just meant the costume, the witch thing. Not that you're actually, I mean." She trailed off, realizing maybe that her backpedaling was too late. The damage was done. Brandon took her arm. "We're leaving now." "Dad, that was inexcusable. You should have defended Mom, not laughed at her." I wasn't laughing at her. I was laughing at the situation, the awkwardness, the wine, not at Eleanor specifically. "You laughed at your wife being called a wrinkled old hag. There's no way to spin that, Dad." Kenneth looked defensive, embarrassed, but not apologetic. Just uncomfortable that he'd been called out, not sorry for what he'd done. Heather's parents looked mortified. Carol came over to me. "Eleanor, I'm so sorry." "We're going to take Heather home. She's had too much to drink." She would never say something like that sober. But would she? Or had the wine just lowered her inhibitions enough to say what she'd been thinking all along? Margaret was still holding my hand. Susan was on my other side. My sister Diane pushed through the crowd. What happened? I was outside. What did I miss? Heather called Eleanor a wrinkled old hag, and Kenneth laughed. Margaret's voice was cold, furious. Diane's expression darkened. "Kenneth laughed at you." His wife. I couldn't respond, couldn't speak, just stood there feeling the weight of every eye in the room, the pity, the second-hand embarrassment, the judgment. Some guests started making excuses to leave, suddenly remembering early mornings, babysitters, long drives, anything to escape the awkwardness, to get away from the scene they'd witnessed. Within 20 minutes, half the party had cleared out. Brandon had taken Heather and Tyler home. Heather's parents had left. Kenneth's golf buddies had disappeared. Just my close friends remained. Margaret, Susan, Diane, a few others who cared enough to stay. Kenneth was in his study, door closed, avoiding everyone, avoiding me. I stood in my living room, surrounded by Halloween decorations that now felt ridiculous, wearing a witch costume that I'd never wear again. Feeling every one of my 64 years, every wrinkle, every sign of aging, every bit of being an old woman who'd been told she was too much and not enough her entire life. Margaret hugged me. "I'm staying tonight. You're not alone. I'm fine. You're not fine, and that's okay. What happened was cruel, unforgivable. You're allowed to not be fine." Susan was cleaning up, throwing away cups, packing up food, trying to help, trying to make something better when nothing could be better. Diane was pacing, furious. "I'm going to talk to Kenneth. This is unacceptable. Don't, please. I just want everyone to go home. I need to be alone. Eleanor, please." They finally left around midnight. Margaret last, reluctant, worried. "Call me if you need anything. Promise, I promise. But I wouldn't burden anyone with this. Would just process it alone. The way I'd processed everything for 6 years, quietly, privately, making myself smaller so everyone else could be comfortable." Kenneth came out of his study around 1 a.m. I was still in the living room, still in my costume, hadn't moved, hadn't cleaned up, just sat there processing what had happened. "Eleanor, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have laughed. It was inappropriate." "Why did you laugh?" "I don't know. Nerves, discomfort. It just came out." "You laughed because you think she's right. You see me as a wrinkled old hag too." "That's not true." "Then why didn't you defend me? Why didn't you tell her that was unacceptable? Why did you laugh instead of protecting me?" He didn't have an answer, just stood there, uncomfortable, wanting this conversation to end, wanting to go to bed and pretend it never happened. "I'm sorry," he said again. "What else do you want me to say?" What did I want him to say? That he loved me, that he valued me, that he saw me as more than an aging wife who embarrassed him, that 37 years of marriage meant something, that I mattered. But I couldn't ask for those things, because asking meant admitting I'd been hoping for them all along, and hope felt dangerous, vulnerable, likely to be disappointed. "Nothing. I don't want you to say anything." He went to bed, left me sitting in the wreckage of my party. My humiliation, my life, and for the first time in 64 years, I felt something shift, something fundamental, something that couldn't be unshifted. I was done, not just with tonight, with all of it, with being too much and not enough, with trying to earn love from people who would never give it, with making myself small so everyone else could shine. I was done being the wrinkled old hag they'd decided I was. It was time to be something else, something they'd never expected. It was time to be free. I didn't sleep that night. Just lay in bed next to Kenneth, staring at the ceiling, replaying everything. The words, the laughter, the humiliation. Wrinkled old hag, Kenneth's laughter, over and over in my mind. The next morning, Kenneth acted like nothing had happened. Made coffee. Read the paper. Normal Sunday routine. "Are you going to talk to me?" I asked. "What do you want me to say?" I apologized. "It's done." "It's not done. You laughed when someone called me a hag. At my own party, in front of everyone. I said, I'm sorry. What else do you want? Should I grovel, beg forgiveness?" It was a momentary lapse in judgment. Move on. Move on. As if humiliation was something you just got over. As if betrayal had an expiration date. Brandon called that afternoon. "Mom, I'm so sorry. Heather feels terrible. She was drunk. She doesn't even remember saying it. She remembers, and even if she doesn't, everyone else does, including your father. Dad was wrong to laugh. I told him that, but Mom, Heather really is sorry. She wants to apologize. I don't want her apology. I want space from all of you. Mom, don't do this. Don't pull away. We're family. Family doesn't humiliate each other. Family doesn't laugh at each other's pain. I need time, Brandon. He didn't push, just said he loved me and hung up. Margaret came over Monday morning, found me still in my pajamas, house still messy from the party, decorations still up. Have you eaten? I'm not hungry. Eleanor, you can't just sit here. You need to process this. Deal with it. I am dealing with it. I'm realizing some things about my life, my marriage, my family. What kind of things? That I've spent 64 years making myself smaller for people who don't appreciate it. That I've given everything and gotten nothing. That I'm done. Done with what? All of it. Kenneth, Heather, being the accommodating mother-in-law, the invisible wife, the woman everyone tolerates but nobody values. Margaret sat down. What are you going to do? I don't know yet, but something big. Heather sent a text Tuesday morning, long, apologetic, explaining how drunk she'd been, how mortified she was, how she'd never meant to hurt me, how she hoped I could forgive her. I didn't respond. She called Wednesday. I didn't answer. Kenneth was annoyed. You're being dramatic. She apologized multiple times. What more do you want? I want to have mattered enough that the insult never happened, that you defended me, that someone in this family saw me as worth protecting. You're making this into something it's not. It was a drunk comment. That's all. And your laughter. Was that also just a drunk moment? He had no answer. By the end of the week, I'd made a decision. I called a divorce attorney. Angela Rodriguez came highly recommended, specialized in high net worth divorces. Tell me what happened, Angela said during our phone consultation. I told her everything. The party, the insult, Kenneth's laughter, 37 years of making myself small, and you want a divorce. I want out. I have significant assets. Money. Kenneth doesn't know the full extent of. I want to make sure I'm protected. Tell me about the assets. I outlined everything. The wealth from my father, my trust fund, my firm, the investments I'd made over 40 years, the real estate, the accounts in my name only. Mrs. Thompson, you're worth approximately how much? Around 50 million, maybe more. Kenneth thinks we're worth 10 million total. He doesn't know about the majority of my assets. And the house Brandon and Heather live in, I bought it, cash. It's in my name. A gift to them, but legally mine. Angela was quiet for a moment. Mrs. Thompson, you have substantial power here. Does Kenneth know you're considering divorce? Not yet. I wanted to understand my options first. Your options are excellent, with separate assets, clearly documented, with 37 years of marriage. With his behavior at the party witnessed by multiple people, you're in a very strong position. I don't want to destroy him. I just want to be free. We can do that, but there will be consequences for him, and for your son's family. Are you prepared for that? Was I prepared? To append everything, to stop being the accommodating mother and wife, to finally put myself first. Yes, I said, I'm prepared. I scheduled an in-person meeting for the following week, told Kenneth I was having lunch with Margaret. He didn't question it, didn't care enough to ask. That's when I knew, really knew, this marriage had been over 4 years. Maybe decades. We'd just been going through motions, existing in the same space without actually connecting. And the Halloween party hadn't ruined anything. It had just exposed what was already true. I was alone in my marriage, invisible to my husband, a burden to my daughter, and I was done accepting it. Something else happened that week too, something unexpected, something that would change everything in ways I couldn't have predicted. But I didn't know that yet. I was just planning my exit. Preparing to reclaim my life, getting ready to stop being the wrinkled old hag and start being Eleanor again. The woman I'd been before I made myself small, the powerful woman I'd forgotten I was. I met William in early December at a coffee shop in Old Town Scottsdale. I'd been meeting with Angela there, going over divorce papers, planning my exit strategy. He was sitting at the next table, distinguished, silver hair, maybe 70, reading the Wall Street Journal. When I dropped my pen, he picked it up, handed it to me, smiled. Divorce papers, he asked, nodding at the document spread in front of me. That obvious. I've been there. Recognized the look, the lawyer, the careful planning. How long ago? 5 years. My wife passed. Cancer. But before that, I'd been through a divorce. 20 years ago. So I understand. We talked for an hour. His name was William Harrison, self-made billionaire, tech industry, retired now, widowed, living in Paradise Valley, 3 grown children, 7 grandchildren. What brings you to divorce at, forgive me for asking your age, 60, and a Halloween party where my husband laughed when someone called me a wrinkled old hag. William's expression darkened. He laughed, loudest in the room. Then he's a fool. You're stunning, and clearly intelligent, organized. Anyone can see that. I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Seen, valued, appreciated. We exchanged numbers. He called 2 days later, asked me to dinner. I said yes. Kenneth didn't notice I was going out. Didn't ask where. Just assumed I was with Margaret. Dinner was at Mastro's Ocean Club. William was charming, attentive, asked about my life, my business, my accomplishments, listened when I talked, didn't interrupt, didn't minimize. You built a multi-million-dollar firm from nothing, from my home office, while raising a son. Yes, that's extraordinary. Your husband must be very proud. My husband thinks I got lucky, that I had family money to fall back on. He's never really respected what I built. His loss. We saw each other 3 more times in December. Coffee, lunch, long walks in the desert. He was easy to talk to, made me laugh, made me feel young, alive, like I mattered. Kenneth never noticed, never asked about my sudden absences, my improved mood, the fact that I was finally happy. Margaret noticed. You're glowing. What's going on? I met someone. Already. Eleanor, you're not even divorced yet. I know, but Margaret, he sees me, really sees me. For the first time in decades, I feel visible. Just be careful. Don't rush into anything. But I wasn't rushing. I was just finally breathing, finally existing as myself instead of as Kenneth's wife, Brandon's mother, Heather's annoying mother-in-law. I was Eleanor, and William liked Eleanor, the real one, not the small version I'd become by Christmas. Kenneth and I were barely speaking. Brandon and Heather had invited us for Christmas dinner. I declined, said I had other plans. Kenneth went alone, didn't question my plans, didn't care. I spent Christmas with William, his family, his children who welcomed me, his grandchildren who thought I was fascinating, a family that saw me as valuable, as worthy of a seat at the table. And I realized something. I'd been living in the wrong family, with the wrong people, for far too long. It was time to change that. Permanently. I filed for divorce on January 15, 2025. Kenneth was served papers at home. He was shocked, genuinely didn't see it coming. Eleanor, what is this? You can't be serious. I'm completely serious. I want a divorce. I've wanted one since Halloween, since you laughed at me being called a wrinkled old hag. That was months ago. I apologized. We moved past it. You moved past it. I didn't. I finally saw clearly. Our marriage has been over for years. We've just been pretending. This is insane. We've been married 37 years. You can't just throw that away over one bad night. I'm not throwing it away. You did, when you laughed, when you chose everyone else over me, when you made me invisible for decades. Angela had prepared everything perfectly. The asset disclosure was carefully crafted. Showed some wealth, but not all of it. Not the 50 million Kenneth didn't know about. His lawyer called Angela within days. Your client is asking for the house in Scottsdale. That's unreasonable. My client bought that house with her own money, from her own investments. It's in her name. She's keeping it. What about spousal support? Mrs. Thompson doesn't need spousal support. She has her own substantial assets. Mr. Thompson will keep his retirement accounts. That's generous, considering his behavior. Kenneth was furious. You're taking the house. Where am I supposed to live? That's not my problem. You'll figure it out. This is vindictive, cruel. You're punishing me for one mistake. I'm leaving a marriage that stopped working decades ago. If you see that as punishment, that says everything about how you saw our marriage. The divorce would take months to finalize, but I'd started the process, started reclaiming my life. Then I did something else, something that would change everything for Brandon and Heather. I called my financial advisor. The house in DC Ranch that's in my name, the one my son lives in. I want to sell it. Are you sure? That's your son's home. It's my house. I gave it as a gift, but legally, it's mine, and I'm selling it. Within 2 weeks, the house was listed. Brandon called, panicked. Mom, what are you doing? We can't afford to buy this house. We'll have to move. Then move. I'm not your bank, Brandon. I'm not responsible for funding your life anymore. This is because of Halloween, because of what Heather said. You're punishing us. I'm not punishing anyone. I'm making financial decisions. That house is worth $3 million now. I'm liquidating assets. This is business. Business. Mom, this is our home. Tyler's home. How can you do this? How could your father laugh at me? How could you not defend me? How could Heather call me a hag in my own house? You all made choices. Now I'm making mine. I also stopped the monthly deposits, the ones I'd been making to Brandon's account for years, $10,000 a month. Money he'd thought came from family investments. Money that was actually from me, supporting his lifestyle, making his life easy. Without that money, without the house, Brandon and Heather were suddenly facing reality. Real expenses, real financial pressure. Heather called, crying, Eleanor, please, we can't afford to move, can't afford our lifestyle without your help. Please, reconsider. You called me a wrinkled old hag, in front of everyone, and no one defended me. Actions have consequences. Heather, I was drunk. I apologized 1,000 times. What more do you want? I wanted respect, basic human decency. I never got it. So now I'm done giving, done supporting, done being your ATM. By March, everything was falling apart for them. The house sold. They had to move to a smaller rental. Brandon had to face that his comfortable lifestyle had been funded by his mother. The mother he'd failed to defend. Kenneth had moved to a condo in Phoenix. Nothing like our Scottsdale house. Smaller, cheaper, all he could afford. And I was with William, happy, free, living the life I'd been denied for 64 years. Margaret watched everything unfold. Are you okay with this? Watching them struggle. I'm not watching them struggle. I'm watching them face reality. The reality that I'm not their safety net. Not anymore. They're going to blame you. Call you vindictive. Mean. Let them. I spent 64 years being nice, being accommodating, being the person everyone could use. I'm done. The wrinkled old hag was gone, and Eleanor had finally emerged. Powerful, wealthy, free, and absolutely done apologizing for taking up space. It's June 2025 now. 8 months since that Halloween party. 7 months since I filed for divorce. 3 months since everything changed. I'm 65 years old, living my best life, and absolutely no one is laughing anymore. The divorce was finalized in April. I kept the house in Scottsdale. My assets, my investments, my $50 million, Kenneth never knew existed. He got his retirement accounts, his car, and a very expensive lesson about respecting your wife. Kenneth lives in a 2-bedroom condo in Phoenix, works part-time consulting because his retirement wasn't enough to maintain his lifestyle. His golf buddies stopped calling. Word spread about what he did, how he laughed, how he lost a wealthy wife because he couldn't show basic decency. Brandon and Heather are still in their rental, struggling. Brandon had to face that his comfortable life was funded by me, that without my support, reality is expensive, hard, unforgiving. Heather tried reaching out last month, asked if we could talk, if I'd reconsider helping them. I said no. She made her choice at that Halloween party. She lives with it now. Brandon still calls occasionally, apologizes, says he should have defended me, should have stood up to Heather. To Kenneth, he's right. He should have, but he didn't. And that has consequences. Tyler is 3.5 now. I haven't seen him in months. That hurts, but I won't beg for access to my grandson. Won't make myself small to earn time with him. If Brandon wants his son to know me, he'll make it happen. If not, that's his choice. And his loss. Margaret is proud of me. You finally chose yourself. After 64 years of choosing everyone else. My sister Diane visits often from California, loves seeing me happy, thriving, no longer invisible. And William asked me to marry him last month. Proposed at sunset, in Paradise Valley, with a ring that cost more than Kenneth made in a year. I said yes. We're getting married in September. Small ceremony, just close friends and family. His children are thrilled. His grandchildren adore me. I'm joining a family that values me, celebrates me, sees me. At 65, I'm starting over, building a new life with a man who treats me like I'm precious, important, worthy, everything Kenneth never did. People ask if I regret how things ended, if I feel guilty about Brandon and Heather struggling, about Kenneth's diminished circumstances, about walking away from 37 years of marriage. The answer is no, because that Halloween party taught me something crucial. When people show you who they are, believe them. When they laugh at your pain, that's information. When they prioritize everyone else over you, that's a choice, and you can choose differently. I chose myself, For the first time in 64 years, I chose myself, and it was the best decision I ever made. If you're listening to this and you're 60, 70, 80, and you think it's too late to start over, hear this: it's never too late. Never too late to demand respect, to walk away from people who diminish you, to choose yourself. I spent decades being called intrusive, controlling, too much, and then one night, I was called a wrinkled old hag while my husband laughed. That was the moment I stopped caring what they thought, stopped making myself small, stopped apologizing for existing. At my Halloween party, my daughter-in-law called me a wrinkled old hag and my husband laughed the loudest. But no one's laughing now. Now I'm engaged to a billionaire who thinks I'm extraordinary, living in the house I paid for with money I earned, thriving at 65 in ways I never imagined. My name is Eleanor. I'm 65 years old, and I'm living proof that the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's living well, living authentically, living for yourself instead of for people who never valued you anyway. Drop your city or country in the comments. Subscribe for more stories about women who chose themselves, because that's what we do. We survive, we rebuild, we thrive, and we show the world that underestimating older women is the biggest mistake anyone can make. The wrinkled old hag they laughed at, she had $50 million, a successful business, and the strength to walk away from everyone who made her feel small. And now she has everything, while they have regrets. Never let anyone make you feel worthless, especially not when you're the most powerful person in the room.